It gets me every time, that voice that says this meeting is being recorded. Welcome back to those of you who've been following the podcast. This is usually the time where you would insert the podcast name. I'm still working on that one. I don't want to just throw one in there just to have one. I want to make sure it's thought out and make sure it's something that I want to stick with, because previously I used the word outspoken as the podcast name, but I don't know, it just doesn't really fit right for me. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully by the next one we'll have an official name that I can do long term. Anyway, enough about the name or lack thereof. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, my friend and former housemate, Ege. Ege, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, man. Excited to be here.
You're very welcome, and I'm excited to have you. Ege, just please give us an introduction into who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so basically, my main role is I coach engineers and logical guys on the dating, social confidence, and as of recently, more spiritual side of things. Mainly because when I was growing up, I was overweight. I just played video games. I had no idea how to talk to people. So I know how it is to go through that struggle. And now, having come out of that struggle, I feel like I have something valuable to share with people. So that's what I've been doing over the past 2 years now.
Awesome, awesome. And I know you've got a great YouTube channel as well that's growing, and
Mhm.
you're active on other forms of social media too. And as a coach, what is it about you that you do differently? Because I know that there's a lot of people who do, life coaching, masculinity
Mhm.
coaching, dating coaching. What about you sets you apart from the rest of the market?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. The first thing is, first of all, I used to work as a software engineer. So I know how it is to actually live that lifestyle. A lot of coaches just come from an outside perspective where, they've been a marketer, businessman, coach all their lives, and now they're coaching like an engineer, but they don't truly know how to speak their terms. They don't truly know how they think. Whereas I've been an engineer before. I've built apps, I built websites, I worked as a part of a team, I managed a team. And through that experience, I know exactly how it feels for an engineer to be thrown into a social situation where it's so unpredictable compared to just like writing a program and you know what's going to come out of it and you have to like break the problem down. Whereas with social skills, it's more about presence and it's more about enjoying the moment. So I think just really knowing the experience of the person that I'm speaking to. And then I would say the second thing is the way that I go about this is there's a lot of coaches who are focused on the surface level result. Like, oh, let me get you 7 million dates this week and you'll be happy. But you won't. You always have problems. So what I really focus on is how can I teach logical guys the dating and social side of things while helping them become the person that they want, helping them have integrity, leading people from a place of empathy and compassion and not really from a place of, oh, I just want to sleep with this girl. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to sleep with this girl. And then guess what? That girl, after that experience, is going to have trauma she needs to work with. So the people I work with are the people who are healthy, who have good beliefs about women, who are known as like the nice, logical guy, who just need to learn how to lead a bit more and have more faith in themselves. And I genuinely think the more guys become that way and lead from that place, the more women are going to start trusting guys again instead of having this disconnect, and the better people's relationships are going to be.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It seems like you're trying to help guys from like a holistic standpoint. You're not just trying to give them,
Mm-hmm.
oh, use this line and it's gonna use this line to get her into bed or whatever, or
Yeah.
this one simple mind trick to have all the women. I I mean, there's a lot of, I know
Use this simple mind trick to get
you're
17 women in bed tonight.
exactly, because you're on YouTube, and I know there's a lot, particularly in your industry, there's a lot of clickbait titles and thumbnails. It's like, just do this, and then with the arrow pointing.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's awesome. I think, yeah, you're coming definitely from a very, very genuine place. So what is the process of you helping guys? So what is the exact service that you provide? So from actually meeting the engineer or the client, and then taking them through the process to getting them to the place where they want to be at in their dating life.
Yeah, so generally there's a few different ways based on where the person's at, what they can really afford, and then how they want to grow. The main two options are they could either do group coaching online or one-on-one coaching online. What I like to do is generally I get them into a group coaching program first that gives them the fundamentals from the mindsets they need to have, how they can understand the beliefs they built about themselves, their culture, the world, woman, and how they can change those beliefs to be more productive so they can get success, but they can also contribute to the world. And then from the mindsets, we move on to habits, which are building high value habits like meditation, going to the gym, eating healthy, taking care of yourself. And then after the habits is when we talk more about approaching conversations, like how to do it from a more structured place. But as I'm teaching all this, my main focus is to give people a compass that they can use so they can decide what to say and they can decide how to approach. And it's a lot more focused on being relaxed and coming from a place of warmth rather than, okay, say this first and then do this first and then say this first. And this is what you do to get the number. And then eventually all those things are combined with accountability. So people get access to me. I check in with them, whether they're in the group or it's one-on-one. So they actually do the assignments that they need to do. So it's not just dropping knowledge on you and expecting you to do everything, but it's actually checking in with you so you're consistent and you're taking those small steps over time, which will give you the growth that you want over time.
Okay. Yeah, because I feel a lot of people, particularly people who feel like they're stuck, they just want an instant fix.
Yeah.
Obviously, your method is, and I've seen with your Facebook posts as well, they are direct and honest and just telling people, listen, this problem with your dating life, or a lot of, I know there is I mentioned this in my last podcast actually, there is a YouTuber called Casey Zander, and he says you don't have dating issues, you have personal issues that reflect in your dating. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people want the quick fix, but yeah, as I've seen with your content, you let them know, listen, you're going to need to apply yourself and dedicate yourself to the steps necessary to getting better, and you need to do that over a long period of time before you can start seeing results. And I think that you can apply that in life as well. If you want something meaningful, if you want to be skilled at something, you have to apply yourself consistently over the long term, and acknowledge that there are going to be setbacks and it's not going to come easy all the time.
Yeah, I agree.
And what would be the key? So with the clients you're dealing with, what would be like a prevalent issue that they face that you would try and help them overcome? Like what's the kind of common issue between your target market?
Yeah, the common issue most of the time is people try to break down their problems and fix them in a logical way, because these guys are so used to using a step-by-step problem solving decision tree, Excel sheets, program type of approach in their work that they feel like they need to transfer that same approach to dating. So the angle they come from is, okay, if I know what to say at the beginning, if I know what to say after, and after that, and after that, I have all these words and phrases and structures in my head, then my problem is going to be fixed. But what that does for most of the time is it just makes the other person overthink themselves a lot more, because now there's all this information in your brain and you're talking to someone and then you go like, which part of the conversation structure am I in? How do I go for the number close? And your brain starts exploding. Whereas what they really need, which a lot of coaches don't really talk about because people like that step-by-step approach. That's what they think they need on the surface. But what they really need is to learn to relax and learn to be present. If you look tense in a conversation, whatever you say, the girl will not respond well because she can look at you. Like, women are a lot more intuitive on average compared to men. So a girl can look at you and just feel you're tense. She doesn't care what you say. However, if you focus on, like, you're talking to someone and you think, which parts of my body are actually tensing up when I run out of words? Is it my chest? Is it my stomach? Is it my eyes? Is it my brain? Or anything else that could be the issue for you? And when you focus on relaxing that as much as you can and really being present, you don't have to say the magical thing. You don't need to say the secret to get the girl interested, because she sees you relaxed around her. And for especially an attractive girl, there's very few people who can be relaxed around her without having any expectations from her. So I would say the biggest thing is trying to transfer the logical approach that works in people's works, especially engineers and logical guys, and trying to apply the same thing onto social skills and dating, which just doesn't work as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you're trying to get them to develop masculine frame. How important is well, first of all, what is masculine frame? Because I think people listening may not necessarily know what that is. What is masculine frame, and how important is it in an interaction?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the masculine energy is basically a lot more about being unreactive and then searching for freedom and mastery. So a lot of the time, if you have strong masculine energy, you will be very grounded about the things that are happening around you. That's why, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but in a lot of dating circles or in some books, I think some guy wrote about this, they will always say, like, you as the man are the mountain and the girl is the wind, and the wind goes in different directions, but you need to stay grounded as the mountain. So it's a lot about being in your own space and then being relaxed in that space and not getting caught up in other people's emotions. That's what I would say. Although I don't think that's a perfect explanation. I think people have their different explanations, but from what I teach, I would say the core of that is being unreactive and being very grounded.
Awesome. Yeah, on masculine frame, even it's not just applicable to your dating life. I think in the business world as well. I mean, obviously, I work in real estate. I noticed that I can notice very quickly someone who's grounded and non-reactive, and they tend to be more successful than people who get flustered. And me myself, my personal life, I used to get flustered at things pretty easily, but I've worked on that. Actually, especially since I've been here in Mexico, I've gotten much better at that. And
yeah,
working in sales, I think, as well, because you deal with a lot of uncertainty and a lot of deals that go through, and clients that might express interest and then turns out they've just been wasting your time the whole
disappear.
time. Exactly. You get very used to handling different situations and not reacting to things just because they don't go your way.
Yeah.
What do you think, other than masculine frame, what do you think are some key traits of a high value masculine man in today's world?
Yeah, so this is going to be a bit controversial.
Okay.
I would say one of the key traits is, again, being relaxed and grounded in your environment, not reacting to what's going on. And the second trait, which is the one that's a bit more controversial, I would say, is like warmth and compassion. A lot of people have this idea that if you're an alpha guy and you're a high value man, you have no emotion. The guys who look big, who show no emotion, are not doing that because they're very strong or they're very high status. They're still doing it out of fear of expressing the emotions that they have, because they feel like if they express that emotion, then they will not be alpha anymore. So what I think, and what I've been learning a lot more recently as well, is the people who are the highest status are just not scared of expressing any part of themselves. So when you can communicate from that place, the people around you just go, okay, let's say we're having a conversation and you just talk about your life exactly the way it is. Like, you don't exaggerate anything and then you don't hide anything. If people can sense you're speaking from that place, they will immediately conclude, okay, if this guy is not trying to hide anything from me, he must be used to spending time around higher status people. Because if he thought I was high status, then he would clearly try to manipulate the situation. But now he's just clearly expressing himself. And then when you can combine that level of expression with empathy and warmth and understanding for people, then that's what I think makes you a very high value guy. Because it's never the guy who looks big, who, you know, who's like, for example, with a girl, and then another guy hits on these like girl's girlfriend. Hopefully not Mike, because that would get messy. But if that happens, like, the guy who gets pissed off is not really the alpha high value guy. The guy who's like, hey man, this is my girlfriend, but if you want to chat, hey, my name is Ege, what's your name? That's the guy who's actually grounded and confident in himself, because he doesn't feel the need to unleash the anger. He can understand people. And although he has that, not desire, but that, how do I explain this? Although he has that power inside him to be able to dominate over other people, he uses it from a responsible place. And he almost never brings it up unless, like, you know, his girl is in danger or he's in danger and he's cornered by like 5 dudes and now he has to fight his way out. I think those are the people with the highest status, and not really the people who bring that side of themselves out all the time, who look like, it's like a balloon. When you just blow air into the balloon, it looks big, but that doesn't mean there's substance behind that balloon. It's just a balloon.
That's an interesting analogy, that balloon one. I'll remember that one.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really like that point. You say that the high value men are just the ones who feel free to express themselves and express however they're feeling in a given moment without worrying about the outside opinions. I want to get your opinion on the red pill community, because
Oh boy.
I feel that perhaps your outlook has some of the red pill characteristics, but when you started to mention the warmth point, I feel like that is something that they don't particularly endorse. When it comes to expressing yourself, being direct and open with your expectations and your communication, I think that certainly is part of the red pill. But in terms of the warmth, I don't necessarily think so. But could you just, well, firstly, just you can probably give a better explanation than me. What is the red pill versus blue pill mode of thinking, and what is your opinion on both mindsets?
Yeah, so interesting question. I've read what's known to be red pill books, And I've gone through that phase around a couple of years ago when I was like, oh shit, this is how life is, where you see, as a guy, you can be 35 and you could date a 22-year-old girl just because your values based in a different way. Or you see like all these ways where women might cheat on someone and why it happens. And I think a lot of the red pill guys, which from my understanding, the red pill is basically a group of people who have decided that they found the truth about women, and using that truth that they have discovered, they change the way that they live. So that means like you don't ever commit to a girl, you always have rotation, you always spin plates, so you have abundance. And then they use the blue pill to describe the guy who's just like not aware of all this, who still thinks that he can buy a woman's affection through movie and dinner or buying flowers. So the red pill guys consider themselves the enlightened group of people. But I think there's a level above that, because they're still stuck on the worldly aspect of like red pill, where they're trying to control women. The reason they don't want to commit is because they're scared. Like, it's good to have options. I mean, I'm not in a relationship now, and I don't know if I will be anytime in the future. But the idea, like some ideas in the red pill are just very toxic. Like, not every girl is going to cheat. They act like, oh yeah, if you get a girlfriend, she's almost always going to cheat. And you might feel that way if you live in Playa del Carmen and you've had a few too many tequila shots and now you're having some adventures with some girls who might not be single. But that's not how things work in every part of the world. Like, I've approached hundreds of girls and I've met some girls who are like, you know what? I think you're amazing, but I've been dating my boyfriend for 7 years. Like, I'm not going to cheat on him. And yes, women are emotional, but that doesn't mean no woman has integrity. You can be emotional and you can still have integrity. And I think a lot of the problem with the red pill people is those beliefs over time become toxic and they become self-fulfilling beliefs. So they start trusting people less. They start trusting women less. And even when they meet a girl who might have the integrity to stay with them, to not cheat on them, they still feel that fear that she's going to cheat on them. And because like now the guy becomes more possessive and more concerned about this whole cheating thing, then the girl might be more likely to cheat. So every belief that we build becomes, in a sense, a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's why like I stay away from that. And then also the second reason is most guys who are in that community, they don't even meet girls consistently. Like, they just talk about relationships. But some of them, like, not all of them, some of them have, good partners. They have interesting knowledge to share. But if you're giving dating advice, the best thing for credibility is like, who are you dating? If you are dating an unattractive girl who has a terrible personality, I'm not taking your advice, man. And I feel like a lot of the people in that group, they kind of just like talk based on this theory without actually showing how to integrate it in the right way, and also showing that they have the results, that they've integrated this, and that's why they have the results that they have. Does that make sense, or was that a bit unclear?
No, I got you. I got you. Yeah, I mean, it is a community that is very black and white, I think,
Yeah.
and they have. I think I think some of their points are interesting for sure, and I think there is merit
Mm-hmm.
in some of the stuff that they say. Like a lot of they've got a lot of catchphrases like what, like stop caring, she starts chasing. She's not yours, it's just your turn. And they're,
Yeah.
but I think I like the way. One of the reasons I asked you this question is because you've got so much insight into this. You've studied this information. You're an expert on this information. So I really value the comments that you have, and I think you can appreciate that life and relationships are never completely black and white. You can't just
Yeah.
apply the same principles to every situation, to every girl, to every guy. Um, so yeah, I appreciate your thoughts on that one. What I do want to ask you as well, and we kind of touched on this a little bit with talking about
Hmm.
being reactive. How important do you think stoicism is in reaching your goals as a man in terms of whether it's in life,
Hmm.
in business, or in your relationships?
Yeah, I think it's quite important. So,
Before you give an answer, could
mhm,
you give your definition of stoic? Because again, I think there's some people watching who may not know what stoicism is. What does
mhm,
stoicism mean to you?
mhm. Yeah, you're putting me on the spot here, man.
That's say this
I
is
think
my podcast.
from from what I have understood as I was going into stoicism, it's a lot about like not taking things personally and really focusing on the things you can control and not getting caught up by the things you cannot control. So that's kind of the idea that I have as I'm talking about this. I mean, after this podcast, I'll take a look and see what the real definition is. But when I think about stoicism, and I know, Jack, we've had this conversation. I remember like late nights when I was making sandwiches one time. I don't know if you remember, but
I do remember this. Yeah.
it was a cool conversation because it all comes down to understanding who you are and controlling the things that you can control and not getting caught up in like the external result or the emotions of other people. In a dating context, the way it's applicable is when you approach someone, you cannot control their reaction. A lot of people, especially if they had a tendency to be the nice guy, they'll try to anticipate the other person's reaction and then have like a way to control it. But you just have to understand you might have the best approach, you might have the best conversation, but maybe the girl just broke up with her boyfriend. Maybe her dog just died and she's pissed off. That has nothing to do with you. I think on a second note, just overall in terms of achieving our goals, what I found is a lot of people get too focused on the external result. Like, I want to make this much money. I want to date this many girls. I want to be at this body fat percentage and this many kilograms. Thankfully, I could say kilograms and not pounds, since we both know what that is. But when
Metric
you have
system all
that,
the way.
yeah, baby, when you have that way of thinking, it's really easy to get discouraged because you don't hit those numbers once. You're like, I didn't get the result that I wanted. This doesn't work. I'm gonna quit. But when you have this stoic approach of just laying one brick at a time, focusing on what you're doing, what I realized is a lot of people think or say that it's really hard to be successful. And don't get me wrong, like if you're born in Kenya or some random country in Africa or any terrible country where you're living on the streets, I get that. Like, that person doesn't have much to do and they don't have much options in terms of how they can grow. But if you're born in the West, you've had decent education, you have access to the internet, you have electricity, you can travel every now and then. That if you want to start a business or whatever you want to do, if you can stay consistent, then eventually, as long as you can also course correct a little bit or work with a mentor, eventually you will get results. The reason I'm saying that is when I started my coaching business, I mean, that was around the time when we were rooming together. And you've seen me like edit a video, you've seen me record videos, and it was just all those small steps. And at the time, like, I didn't know if 20 people were going to watch my video. I didn't know if anyone was going to watch the video, but I just kept doing the things that I had to do. And over time, they just add up, similar to what you're doing with this podcast. Like, we're having this conversation, and you're going to upload this to YouTube, and you don't know if it's going to be 10 people watching or 10 million people watching, but you're just putting in the reps. And because you're putting in the reps, over time, since so few people are consistent, your thing's going to take off. And that's how it works with every different part of our lives, I think.
Well, I really appreciate that. I think what you're talking about there is the importance of putting in, even if whether they're small actions or big actions, just being consistent with the actions, and then that will compound and have, I'm not sure if you've heard of the snowball effect, where
Yeah.
initially starting out, everything is always difficult. And I can apply this to my podcast. I can apply this to starting in real estate as well. So when I first started working here, it took me 6 weeks to get my first sale. Then 2 days later, I got another sale. And then 2 weeks after that second sale, that person canceled that sale. So it's not just, and so once you start making progress, it's not just a case of, oh, here we go, it's on, it's guaranteed, and I'm going to be massive now. There's still going to be dips and failures, but with the snowball effect, it's hard at the start, but if you stay consistent, you get a little bit better. You get a few more views. You get some progress on your physique, whatever it is that you're trying to improve, and then it gets gradually easier. Not that it gets easier, but because you're becoming more aware and you're honing in your skills and you're getting stronger mentally and physically. If you're in the gym, it becomes like this snowball effect where you're just one step away from becoming huge.
Yeah.
Like, and you see that with YouTube growth is a great example where like someone has 100 subscribers their first year, they get to 1,000 subscribers in their second year. Then they put out 1 or 2 videos that go viral, and then there's just this exponential explosion of growth, and they go into like 100K plus subscribers the following year.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I really appreciate your point about staying consistent, because I think that's the kicker. That's the thing that's so important.
Yeah.
And it can be just staying consistent with small things. Going to the gym, again, another great example. You're not going to do anything phenomenal in one workout, but it's
Yeah.
the compounding effect of 4 to 5 or whatever number you're doing a week over the course of months and years. And then you look back and say, wow,
Yeah.
One question I have for you as well. This will probably be my last one. I know you're a high value guy, so you value your time and you got to be somewhere in a few minutes. How important do you think mentorship is, whether it's in dating or life mentorship? I know you're probably at the intersection of the two. How important is it for someone to get a mentor to get them to that next level?
Yeah. So, in my completely objective opinion, I'm going to say it's very important. And the reason I'm saying this is it doesn't matter if someone's doing it with me or someone else. What I always like to focus on every time I'm on a call with someone as well is if I genuinely feel they have a problem. Is as human beings, we're geared to feel the pain of like losing money in that moment compared to considering, okay, what's going to happen if I don't invest in this? Like, what's going to happen if I don't find the solution to this problem? And that's why a lot of people stay stagnant. Like, they don't want to exchange $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 to fix the problem they have at the time, because they're more attached to the money than actually fixing the problem. And I think, I don't really know why, but I've always been the type of person to invest if I felt like it was the right thing at the time. Like, if I felt something was going to help me. I didn't care about the money. I would just be like, all right, here you go. And over the last year, I probably invested like maybe around 20K into my business, 15K, 20K in terms of business mentorship, personal mentorship, all these different things. And when I look back to where I would be if I didn't invest that money, it would just be like stuck making $1,000 a month. And it's completely different. Now we've scaled way beyond that. And now it's a lot more consistent. But most importantly, through mentorship, you learn skills. So going back to that thing of consistency, a lot of people want the results. But through consistency, you can build the skills. And when you build the skills, the results can be replicated. So if you're building a skill of, making a sale. So let's say 2 years from now, you want to do something else. You could go to another company, sell something completely different. But because you built the skill, the result is going to come in a predictable way. But if I just gave you like $20,000 and didn't teach you anything, you might feel good at the time, but you haven't learned the skill. So once that 20K runs out, you don't really have the skill. It's the same thing in fitness, it's the same thing in dating, it's the same thing in business. I don't join or suggest a mentorship so you get the results. I suggest a mentorship so you get the skills. Of course, as you're learning the skills, you'll get the results. But the thing with mentorship is like, I can pay now and I'll have the skill for the rest of my life. And to me, that's worth 5K, 10K, 20K, whatever the amount it is, as long as I believe that it will help me. I think the reason a lot of people are hesitant to invest into stuff like this is not because like, oh, I don't know if your coaching is going to work. It's because they don't believe that they can do it. And that's a self-belief problem. Because when you're working with a coach, there's 3 things you need to look for, or before working with a coach. First thing is, are they getting results for themselves? That's why when we were talking about the red pill guys, I was like, I'm not going to take advice from anyone who's not dating the type of girl that I want to date, because that means to me, they don't have the results that I want. The second thing is, are their students getting results? So someone could be really good, but they could not be as good in teaching the same thing to someone else and transferring that information. So that's why we check the student results. And then the last thing is, do I identify with their story? Like when you're searching for a mentor, it's important that you identify with the person that they are. A lot of the guys who are in the stage of their life where they just want to sleep with a lot of girls, they're going to come and they're going to be like, what is this spiritual warmth and love bullshit Ege is talking about? And they're going to go to a different company that focuses a lot more on just sleeping with a bunch of different girls. But that's good. Like, I don't want to teach those guys because they haven't really evolved to the stage where I can help them build more meaningful relationships. So that's why it's important to identify with the story. But if someone has all that as they're considering a mentor, and they're still like, oh, I don't know about this, like, is this really going to work? It's a lot of money. Unless like you live on the streets and you genuinely don't have the money. It's not about the money. It's about, do you believe you can actually get this done? Because one thing we also like to avoid is then you have to face yourself and you're like, fuck, if I pay this money and there's all the results that other students got, there's all the results this person's getting. If I don't get results after this, then that might mean I'm a failure. And people will rather avoid that fear and not know and stay comfortable than to face that fear and actually invest and stay consistent.
Listen, Ege, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the value that you've given as well.
Thanks, man.
as I suspected, you'd be dropping value bombs on this podcast. Can't wait to watch it back
Yeah.
and pick up again on some of the stuff that you mentioned. Last thing, Ege, how can people find you if they want to potentially avail one of your programs or they want to keep up to date with what you're doing?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is called The Charming Man. If you want, Jack, I'll send you the link and we can put it in the description. And then when you go there, if you want to schedule a call, there's a link literally under every video to schedule a quick call. Generally, the first call is just 10 minutes so we can talk about your problem. I'll give you some advice. Don't worry, I'm not going to take your credit card details. So if you just want to talk and get some free value, schedule a call. Like, I don't bite. And then if that call goes well, and if you feel like you need some extra help, we can schedule a longer call, talk about what you need. And then at the end, if you want to join, we can talk about coaching options. But again, for me, the most important thing is like anyone I have, I want them to be committed and I want them to be open to taking feedback and have healthy beliefs around women. Because my responsibility as a coach is if I teach someone who has very unhealthy beliefs for women and they just want to like sleep with women, they don't care what the woman feels, then that has an exponential effect and I can't really stand behind that. So that's the type of people that I'm looking for, is someone who deep inside genuinely cares about other people, who can stay committed. And those are the people that I want to work with.
Awesome, Ege. Thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you again soon. When are you back in Playa next?
Dude, I don't know. I'll be in Houston for another week or 2 weeks, and then going to Austin to run some boot camps. And Playa, I don't really know. Maybe another part of Mexico at some point, but honestly, I have some concerns about coming back to Playa.
Okay. Listen, we'll see each other in some gorgeous city somewhere in the world.
Yeah.
At some point.
Sounds good. Good plan.
Good. Big plan. We'll see what happens. Veremos que pasa. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.